Hello everyone, my name's Ross, I'm Hawaii50, and today I want to talk to you about fish food. There's a lot of different fish foods out there on the market for a lot of different fish, and I just want to share with you guys what I do to feed my fish, how it saves me money, and how I get it to last, how I can go 6 months without buying fish food. This hobby's very expensive. It doesn't have to be, but unfortunately that's the way this hobby goes. So I started looking at ways to reduce my costs without having any negative effects on my tank and its livestock. And one of the ways I thought about doing that was through feeding them. And as I said earlier, there's a lot of different fish foods out there, a lot of different types, ranging in various costs. I got tired of having to buy frozen cubes of brine shrimp or Mysis shrimp, clams on the half shell every month, spending $10–20 each time on just a single pack. Obviously, you want to vary what your fish intake, so you want to get variations. You don't want to buy the same thing over and over again. Then you look at supplements, you look at dried food, and it does add up, absolutely. So it all starts, and it's all based around American Reef High Performance Diet. Now, this product came about from zoos and aquariums, and obviously, they are massive facilities. They have, hundreds, thousands of animals that they need to feed on a daily basis. And what this food allows them to do, it allows them to ensure that their livestock and their animals are getting all the nutrients, vitamins, proteins that those animals need for their daily requirements. So this is what I use to bind all of these ingredients together. I've been feeding this to my fish for almost 3 years now, and it took about a week for them to really get going on it. But after that, they go nuts for it. They absolutely love it. And that's when I was just feeding this to them on its own. I wasn't even mixing any other ingredients with it. So that's how I base my entire, you could call it a recipe from. I like to add a flake and a pellet fish food as well. I tend to stick with New Life Spectrum and Ocean Nutrition. The reason why I add flakes and pellets to my fish food is because when I go away, I provide my fish these in automatic feeders, so that when I do go away and the fish are fed through the automatic feeder, they're not complete strangers to these foods. So that's why I mix it in with their normal food. I don't like flake and pellet food. I don't think it comes close to the nutritional values and daily requirements that other fish foods provide. But it's easy, it's cheaper, and it is a little bit convenient as well. So I do see why people tend to feed this exclusively. Another ingredient that I like to add is crushed nori. Now, I only have one true herbivore in my tank, and that is the Kole tang. But he's a tang and he needs this on a daily basis, so I'm not going to stick an entire sheet of nori into my tank. For those of you who do, there's better ways, I assure you, and this is it. It's going to save you a lot of mess, it's going to save you a lot of time. You're not going to have to faff with the clip, you're not going to have to worry about sheets of it tearing off and floating around your tank, getting caught up in your pumps and things like that. This way you can ensure that your tangs get the nori that they need on a daily basis. Now, yes, tangs are grazers, and it is nice to give them a sheet now and again, but this will eliminate having to do it on a daily basis. So you could maybe even cut that down to once a week or something like that. I do like to add frozen food or raw frozen food to the ingredients as well. Today I've gone with Mysis, but obviously there are different types of, or many different types of frozen foods out there. Mysis is just what I happen to have with me today. And I do vary this up as well. And then the other thing that I feed my fish that makes up half of their daily diet is LRS's Herbivore Frenzy, Fish Frenzy or Reef Frenzy. Today I've got herbivore and Reef Frenzy fish foods available. I really like the results that people have been getting with this food with difficult to eat fish and picky fish. I've started noticing a difference in fish that I add to my quarantine system when I feed this to them. I find that more difficult fish to feed tend to be a little bit easier and a little bit more interested in their food when I start with the LRS range. Typically I wait 24 hours after adding new fish to a quarantine tank before I feed them, and I think the majority of the time the fish will pick up on this straight away. But again, it doesn't happen every time, but I've definitely noticed an increase in my success rate in getting fish to eat in quarantine. And the other thing that I like to feed is Reef Chili. You'll probably recognize the brand. It's basically a dried powdered food, and it's a mixture of zooplankton, amphipods, phytoplankton, copepods, rotifers, things like that. There's a whole bunch of good stuff in here, and this is for the corals primarily. You can also use it to feed worms, or I should say feather dusters like fan worms, sponges and things like that too, as well as clams, for those guys that are more filter feeders. So this is a great product as well. And lastly, Celcon. It's basically a vitamin supplement. It's a liquid. It contains a lot of omega-3s, unsaturated fatty acids, and vitamins as well. And it just provides them just that little bit more nutrients that some of these foods aren't necessarily going to provide on such a concentrated level. Okay, so let's get mixing. I'm going to start off with the HPD, and I want to do enough food so that I can fill these two mini ice cube trays. Because I basically feed one of these cubes each time I feed my fish. So we're going to open the box, and you actually want to fill these two trays. You actually need quite a bit of food. So this was 25 bucks, and we're going to use about a quarter of it in here. There we go. So yeah, that's about a quarter used there already. Alright, next we're going to do a spoonful of, and I should point out this is a 1 tablespoon measuring cup, so we're going to do about half a tablespoon. So just throw that in there. And we'll do the same with the flakes as well. In fact, I'm going to do a tablespoon of the flakes. Now, I've already pre-measured out my frozen food and my nori, so this nori here is just one standard sheet of nori basically. So I just drop that in. I've got my, this is 4 cubes of mysis shrimp, that's going in there. And again, this is going to be 4 cubes as well, and that's these 4 cubes. I've already used these previously to portion out the LRS foods. So I'm going to pour this out into here. That's good. So in this instance, I'm using the Herbivore Frenzy and the Reef Frenzy. But as I said, I also get the Fish Frenzy as well. I just like to mix it up. I think variance is important when it comes to your fish's diet. And then we go to the Reef Frenzy. Now, for this, I don't like to use that much. I'm just going to do a couple dabs and that's it. So there's 1, 2, and what the hell, 3. It's a good load. And then lastly, the Celcon. So you want to give it a good mix. You can store this at room temperature, or you can store it in your fridge. I just store it in my fish carb closet. And for this, I do about 5 mils. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know what? Let's do a couple more for luck. Alright, there we go. Doesn't that look delicious? Depends who's watching, I guess. So now, what's going to bind all of this is hot water. I've already popped the kettle on. And we're just basically going to pour this on the side there. You don't want too much. And then we're going to mix it in. Now, you can have this as thick or as runny as you like. I should point out actually that this is RODI water as well that I pulled from my auto top-off container. You can see that's pretty thick. I actually prefer a little bit runny than that because it makes spreading it into these cubes a lot easier. So I'm going to add a little bit more water to this. Again, doesn't take much for it to affect the consistency at all. But it's crucial that you use near to boiling water for this, because otherwise it's not going to activate the HPD and it's not going to form that jelly consistency to it, unfortunately. Alright, so that's pretty good. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's a pretty good consistency. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. My wife's going to kill me if she sees that I've used this, because she uses this for icing her cakes. Little does she know. I'm sure she knows. So I'm going to take this, literally just scoop it out and put it on and spread it throughout all of the cubes. And that's basically it. That's what I do to get my food ready, and then this is going to go into the freezer. Once it's frozen, I'll take the cubes out, and that's it. So what we'll do is I'll fill these cubes up, we'll come back, show you what it looks like, throw it in the fridge, and then when the batch is done, we'll feed the fish. I mean, that's what everybody wants to see, isn't it, anyway? So guys, thanks for watching, and we'll be back shortly. Hey guys, we are back. It's been about a week since I mixed up this batch of food, and as you can see, we've got the cubes in the Tupperware container here, already out of their tray, and then we've got a tray here of cubes. Now, firstly, you'll notice the color difference between them. These has obviously been in a sealed Tupperware container for the last week in the freezer, and these quite clearly have not. So unfortunately, they've got a little bit of freezer burn almost on the top, but that's really not a problem at all. One thing I would advise for those of you who are going to be using these trays or anything similar is don't be like me, and as soon as you pull them out of the freezer, start bending the tray. Unfortunately, I did that and I cracked my tray right down the middle, and that's now gone. So I'm now down to one tray. So what I'd recommend doing is taking a knife with a smallish blade and just start popping them out one by one like this. As you can see, they come out pretty cleanly with hardly anything left behind, so minimum cleanup effort there. Now once you do pull the cubes out, you'll notice that, and from the freezer obviously they're going to be rock solid, but if you're going to be curing them in the fridge, they'll be quite soft and almost gelatinous as well, so they're going to hold their form pretty well, and you'll see that when we feed the fish as well. You're going to see the cubes under the water, the fish picking at them, but no matter what, they're going to hold their shape in my hand, and it's going to take me actually breaking them up with my hand to change that form, so they held up really well. Now, I prefer to make one large batch of these cubes, and 2 trays will last me about 2 to 3 months. But if you prefer, and there's no argument against this at all, it's just how much work you want to do, you can make up a batch to last you a week or 2, and in that case I would actually keep them in the fridge rather than putting them in the freezer. The reason being is they'll stay a little bit more fresh, and they'll still hold their shape, so you don't have to worry about that at all. Now, one thing I should point out is that normally off of one of these trays I would have about twice the amount of food here. Well, I ended up giving away half the portion to a gentleman who was coming over, who purchased some Chato off of me, and he has quite a large tank. We got to talking, and I managed to convince him to take away some of this food to try on his fish. He has, like I said, he has quite a large tank. It's 400 gallons. He's got a unicorn tang, a sohol tang. He's got some large angels in there as well. So I thought it'd be a good thing for him to try on his fish, to see how they like them. So yeah, ordinarily we would have about twice the amount of food here, and it would last about 2-3 months, like I said. So we're going to go ahead and take one of these cubes, and we're going to go and feed them to the fish for their breakfast, and you guys can see how much they enjoy their breakfast. Alright guys, back in a second. Alright guys, here we are, fish are ready. Let's go ahead and get them some food. So I'm just going to drop literally going to drop 2 fingers in with the cube, and you're going to see how well, wow, that was quick. You can see how well it holds its shape in the water despite the Bellis, the bicolor angel, and the blue-green chromis going after it. And the clowns, sometimes they do. Apparently on this occasion they're feeling a little bit more brave than usual. So you see the marine beta lurking in the background there. He's going to come up as well in a second. He normally waits for the crowd to die down. So the reason why I do this, or why I hold the food here, is because I like to allow the bigger fish to get chunks first, like the bicolor angel and the Bellis angel. And then I'll start breaking up. Oh, there's the marine beta, we'll let him grab something. There he goes. Marine beta is by far my favourite fish in the tank right now. Just an absolute beauty of a fish. Great personality as well. There you go. I was always worried that he would be a bit of a slower eater, but actually I think it's a female based off of its behaviour, but she's done really well. So as you can see here, I'm just kind of breaking off chunks little by little, but even when I shake it, there's a lot of loose food there. It still holds its shape really well. And this is great for feeding to your corals too. What I do is once a week I'll put one of these cubes in a small container, add a bit of tank water to it and let it sit. And then once it's soft enough, I will mush it up, and then I will use a syringe and I'll target feed the corals with it. And they do really well with it. They absolutely love it. Sometimes the shrimp come over as well on occasions. Not today though. A bit too crowded for them perhaps. But again, because you can hold this food as it is, or you can mush it up in your hands, it allows all the fish of all sizes to get a decent meal out of the one cube. So my smallest fish is a Helfrichi firefish, and he's going to get plenty of food off of this because his pieces that he eats are going to be a lot smaller. And again, the larger fish, they take the larger chunks. Let me just close the lid up so you can have a look with the radions on. It's a bit blue. You can adjust that. So you'll notice that because I mushed it up in my hand, there's a lot of it floating around in the water column, and this is why it works great for corals too, because you think about the torch corals, the hammers, your SPS corals, my Duncans for instance, they're all going to get a good amount of food from this, just from that one feeding, and I kind of attribute that to why my corals are doing so well. Now, I feed these cubes twice a day, and that would be an absolute maximum for a tank of this size. I feel like my tank is quite heavily stocked, and because of that high bio load, I do reduce those feedings to just twice a day, and in some cases I will cut one of those cubes in half, but it's worked really well for me, and it's worked really well for the fish and the corals, so I'm not going to change that anytime soon. But you have to remember, everybody's tanks are different, everybody has different livestocks, different corals in their tank, so you're going to need to adjust your feeding accordingly if you do decide to adopt this matter. And I would definitely start off with maybe half a cube once a day if you've got a fully stocked, fully matured, fully cycled tank, and go from there. Alright, we'll come back in just a second, guys. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I really wanted to share with you what I feed my fish and what I feed my corals. I really attribute that food and that recipe to my corals' growth, their coloration, My fish are just doing fantastically. They've got great colour, they're very healthy, their growth and development is amazing. I definitely like to use the male lytail anthias fish, the marine beta and the Australian harlequin tusk as examples of that. I really feel that because of the diet that I feed them, their coloration and their growth and development is just come on leaps and bounds than it would have if I wasn't feeding them such a varied and high nutrient diet. It's a diet that has definitely saved me money, whereas, as I mentioned previously, I was buying lots of different foods. The American Reef HPD food has definitely allowed me to combine multiple foods together in smaller amounts to ensure that my fish get the best quality food that they can possibly have, ensuring they get all the nutrients that they need, all the proteins, all the minerals, and all of their omega-3s and unsaturated fats. And because of that high concentration of nutrients and that variance of ingredients, I really believe that this food has benefited my tank in more ways than a lot of foods out there possibly could. So that's it, guys. That's my video on my DIY food. If you guys have any questions at all, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you out. I've got a couple more videos coming out. One is going to be a follow-up video for the new salt mix that I've been using, and I also have a Frag tank in the works as well, which is going really well. And I'll post a link to the build thread for that reef tank in the description section of this video. So guys, I'm Hawaii Favo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.